In the small, foggy town of Ravenshade, life was quiet and slow. The narrow streets twisted between old, crumbling houses that looked like they belonged to another century. The air always seemed thick with secrets, and the people who lived there wore an odd kind of stillness, as if they'd forgotten how to feel alive. Elias West was one of them, or so it seemed. A middle-aged librarian with graying hair and round glasses perched on his nose, Elias spent most of his time surrounded by books in his cozy house on Mill Road. But there was one thing he couldn't ignore: the strange music that played every night at exactly midnight. It was faint and haunting, like a melody carried by the wind. The townsfolk shrugged it off, saying it had always been there, but Elias couldn't accept that. There was something too strange about it. Something that pulled at his mind, begging for answers. One cold October night, as frost nipped at the windows, Elias decided enough was enough. He needed to find out where the music was coming from. At midnight, he grabbed a lantern and stepped into the misty streets. The fog wrapped around him, and the melody seemed to dance in the air, leading him forward. His steps echoed on the cobblestones as he moved through the silent town, following the song as it grew clearer. The trail led him to the edge of Ravenshade, where the ruins of an old church stood. Its spires reached into the foggy sky like skeletal fingers. The church had been abandoned for years, its doors shut tight until now. The music was unmistakably coming from inside. With a deep breath, Elias pushed open the heavy wooden door. It groaned loudly, breaking the eerie silence. Inside, the air was cold and damp. The faint light from his lantern flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. The music was louder now, filling the empty space as if the church itself was alive. At the center of the room stood an old dust-covered piano. It was majestic but eerie, its keys glowing faintly in the dim light. Elias stared, his heart pounding. The music was coming from the piano, but no one was there to play it. He stepped closer, drawn in by the melody. Slowly, he reached out and touched one of the keys. The moment his fingers met the cold ivory, the music stopped. Silence swallowed the room, heavy and suffocating. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Elias saw movement. A shadow stretched across the wall, but there was no one there. He turned quickly, his pulse racing, and froze. At the far end of the church stood a woman cloaked in black, her face hidden beneath a hood. She didn't move, yet her presence was overwhelming, as if she were part of the very air around him. "Who are you?" Elias whispered, his voice trembling. The woman stepped forward, silent and weightless, until she stood by the piano. Slowly, she raised her hands and placed them on the keys. The music began again, but this time it was darker, heavier, like it carried the weight of something ancient. The woman lifted her hood, revealing a face pale as moonlight and eyes as deep as the night sky. "This is the Church of Echoes," she said, her voice soft but haunting. "Here, memories live in music, waiting for someone to listen. The melody you followed, it was a call. It chose you." Elias's throat tightened. "Why me?" She smiled faintly. "Because you seek answers, but not all answers bring peace." He stared at her, his mind racing. "What is this place? Why is the music here?" The woman's gaze darkened. Long ago, a man sought the truth hidden in these walls. What he found was a secret too dangerous to keep. The music became a seal, a way to keep that truth locked away. But the seal weakens with time, and when it breaks, the truth will escape. Elias took a step back, his heart pounding. "What kind of truth?" "One that changes everything," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "But some truths are not meant to be known. You must choose, walk away, or let the music claim you." Elias felt the room closing in on him, the air thick with an unseen force. The melody grew louder, twisting and distorting, pulling at him like a tide. He stumbled back, clutching the lantern as the woman's eyes seemed to pierce through him. I don't want this," he stammered. The woman tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Then leave. But know this, the music will always find you, a reminder of the truth you left behind." With a burst of courage, Elias turned and ran. The piano's notes chased him through the dark, echoing in his mind. He didn't stop until he was back in his home, slamming the door shut and collapsing in his chair. The next morning, the town was quiet. The music had vanished. The church, when he returned, was empty. No piano, no woman, no sign of what had happened. Elias never spoke of that night, but every so often, when the wind howled through the streets, he thought he could hear a faint melody, calling to him from the shadows. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. The pursuit of truth can lead to answers, but not all answers are worth the price they demand. Sometimes it's wiser to let the unknown remain unknown.